Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And we're here to talk about stuff.
As we always do.
Yep. We are, this is sort of an episode where it just snuck up on us and it's like, oh yeah, Sean, it's Sunday night, we need to do a podcast.
Yes.
And we have one concrete topic, which is that we want to talk about the new episode of Doctor Who that aired a couple nights ago, Dinosaurs On A Spaceship, which we both enjoyed quite a bit.
Yes.
So there's a good amount to talk about there, but obviously not as much as with like a season premiere or something. So we need other stuff to pad it out. So instead of a formal topic, we're just going to talk about whatever comes to mind. We're just going to sort of shoot the shit this episode and end with the Doctor Who discussion. So if you don't watch Doctor Who and therefore have no soul, you can cut the episode off at that point, right?
Yep. Or if you have no interest in listening to us shoot the shit, you can just skip ahead until we talk about Doctor Who.
Yes. Or if you have no interest in both of those things, I have seriously no idea why you would have come this far with us.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what we do. We talk about random stuff, we talk about Doctor Who, occasionally some other stuff.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah.
Mostly just Doctor Who.
All right. So, Sean, we're just going to talk about what's going on. I have a story to tell you first, and that is that I bought the game Red Dead Redemption a couple months after it came out, like maybe 6-7 months. Like when it was on sale, it was cheaper, Yeah. I always wanted to play it because I heard all these great things about it.
For reference, Red Dead Redemption did come out 2 years ago.
Okay.
So
it's
been a while.
It's been a while. So I've been playing it a long time on and off. Like I'll play a bunch of it, and then a new game will come out, and I'll play that, and then I'll go back to Red Dead. It's been sort of like a constant that I keep running back to, because it's one of my favorite games of all time. I love it. It's like so much fun. And I think one of the things that distracts me from the main story when I talk about like finishing it is I'll always go in and wind up just sort of goofing off in the game. It's that kind of game where I actually have more fun goofing off in Red Dead than I do even in GTA.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, just riding your horse is addictive.
Yeah, I mean, I beat Red Dead Redemption probably like a week after it got out because I just was completely addicted to it. So, yeah. I mean, so we're like coming from completely different ends. I finished it way quicker than you should have just because I got obsessed with that game because it's so immersive.
And
you just took an ungodly amount of time. Like, you took so long to beat the game.
I've beaten the game.
I've beaten the game twice. I've beaten the game twice.
So here's my story, Sean. I'm not telling you this because I've beaten the game.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this because on Saturday afternoon, John Marston just died in my game.
And that's his 2-year-old game.
And I just got to the big point that's not even to the end of the game.
Yeah, you finally gotten to the big epic story moment. 2 years after the game came out. I mean, I'm impressed that you were able to just stick with that playthrough for that long. Because if it was me, like if start a game and then like get off of it for like maybe 3 weeks, I have to restart the game over again. Like I can't just pick it up where it was.
I have to do that with like Mass Effect. Like I started playing Mass Effect. I got through like the Citadel and everything.
Yeah.
And I want to go back and play. I got distracted with school stuff. I want to go back and play that whole game, but I know I'm gonna have to start from the beginning because it's such a dense story.
Yeah.
And I fucking loved everything I played, so I'm like, I'll do it again. It's fun. But yeah, with Red Dead, I don't know. Maybe I'm able to do it because it's a fairly episodic game, and I can always just pick it up and I know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I think where I left it was pretty much after he'd gotten back to his family. And to be fair, the stuff where he's with his family is to me the least compelling part of the game, because I think it's a really well written game, but I don't think they write Mrs. Marston or young Jack all that well. I think especially young Jack is sort of a mix of a lot of teenage boy stereotypes that just kind of grate on my nerves.
Yeah, I can kind of get that.
But I will say this. So John Marston dies, it's an amazing scene. Maybe we can talk about that in a minute, about this 3-year-old game event.
Yeah.
But they did a fantastic 180, going from little bitch Jack Marston to, holy shit, that guy is badass, Jack Marston. Like, when he turns around and you see his adult design, I was like, oh my god, he looks even cooler than his dad did. What happened? Was he taking testosterone?
I don't know. I mean, he just fucking, man, when your dad dies in the Old West, you man up and you go, ride out like a badass.
The first thing I did was slaughter like 30, 40 people. Because that's what I do in Red Dead. I rode to Blackwater, killed everyone I saw on the way there, and then you have all your equipment from your dad,
yeah.
And so I just started throwing firebombs and dynamite around the town and just killed everyone there.
For me, when I play Red Dead Redemption, like, I very rarely would go off, like, because since I'm much more of, like, a role-playing gamer than you are, like, I, like, kind of played it as if I was John Marston, so I didn't go around just, like, beating up women and just killing hundreds of people and, like, stealing money from banks and stuff like that.
That is how I play the game. Like, that's all I do.
I basically tried to play the game as straight-laced as I can. But I remember the one time I really cut loose is like I just like saved, and then I was just riding around. And I was in the Mexico section of the game, which is like the middle third, and I just came across this random little town, and on the roof of this little like side town in Mexico was a Gatling gun. It's like just this mounted Gatling gun on top of this building, and I saw that, and I'm like, this is going to be the next hour of my life. I massacred everything. I just killed the entire town, and I just like waited and let the lawmen like lay siege, and I just gunned everything down and killed like everyone. So it's like I feel like I got all of my massacring out in that like one section where I depleted the population of Mexico in about an hour.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So do you want to hear what my current bounty is at?
What's your current bounty?
$8,600. You can't even make that much in the game, I'm pretty sure.
That's a lot of money.
It's bad. My goal is to get it to 10,000. I've realized torturing Blackwater, I can only do it so much. I need to go to some other towns. I mean, my Mexico bounty when I left was at like 9,000. But it's like that's moot point because I haven't been back to Mexico yet. But maybe I will and settle the bounty by killing more people. But so I do want to say, I know this is an old game twist and everything, and I did have the John Marston dies thing spoiled for me a long time ago because it's one of the seminal moments in gaming.
It's such a huge twist that it's like, if you haven't played the game like a couple of months out after it came out, I can see how it probably gets spoiled for you somehow.
But damn was I impressed with the way they did it. I mean, to be fair, I don't think they really do it as much as a, oh my god, this is a big twist thing, as just this is an organic story moment. It has to happen,
that story.
And I think they do a really good job with it. There's just... I mean, you talk about the graphics in the game are so good. The animation on the scene where he sends his family away and then he has no more lines. He just silently looks. He looks out. He sees they're all there and he accepts, I'm going to die. And they do it all visually. And this is in a video game, which even 5 years ago you could not have done that.
Yeah,
it's great. And this game's 2 years old, so.
Yeah, no, Red Dead Redemption's a really awesome game. It's like, and I had no idea that you hadn't beaten it. Like, because we've talked about it before, and I knew the last time we talked about it you hadn't beaten it, but the last time we talked about it was like a year ago. So you just assumed at some point in the interim,
right,
you had beaten the game.
Well, a year ago we actually did a podcast of our 10 favorite video games. This was on my list at like number 5. I haven't beaten it though.
I mean, Red Dead Redemption's an awesome game, and I think it does, even though it has, to me, like, it's got like one of the best stories in gaming, but it also kind of highlights one of the biggest problems with like mostly Rockstar games and stories, is that like at a certain point, the video game part, like, no longer meshes with the story part.
Right.
Because it's like, once you get to Mexico and you're doing missions, just like, because naturally you have to amp up the difficulty of the mission, you're cutting down hundreds and hundreds of dudes.
Yeah.
So it's like, by the end of the game, you've killed thousands of people. And that's just completely ridiculous. Like, you couldn't take that seriously in like a movie.
Right.
If you saw this like ridiculous, like 20-hour movie where most of it is the protagonist killing thousands.
Right. But but you know what? I think Red Dead handles that better than GTA 4 did because they kill John Marston.
Yeah, they do.
Because he kind of gets what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And I do feel that even though like the middle portions of the game especially kind of go wild with that, I do feel that one of the really interesting things they do is that last section, once you go back with your family, I like how it is you don't immediately go back to your family and then the sequence happens where he dies. I like that you have those like dozen or so missions where you're like just helping out around the farm. You're helping your son Jack. It's like you're getting reacquainted with your family. It's like you have this cool settling down moment, and then your past comes back to you. I thought that was such an interesting way to
That's
structure
how it has
story.
to happen to me, too. It's you have... John Marston kind of has to learn at a point that he cannot escape what he's done, and it has to happen when he thinks he's going to live the rest of his life this way.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's really tragic, because, I mean, I know you didn't particularly like those sections of the game, but I actually really...
What I was going to say, actually, is that I think there are writing issues, but on the whole, I do like that section of the game. I don't maybe like it as much as some other sections, but I was actually really impressed with how well they did build John's investment in his son. Even if I had issues with the son, all the missions where he's just trying to teach his son about, how to hunt, how to, kill, but really what they're doing is it's sort of a more, thematic bonding between the two of them. I think that's well done. So
yeah, that's because and I also like how that kind of mirrors the very beginning of the game where you do all like the household tasks with Bonnie at the very beginning.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how long we can talk about this 2-year-old game.
No.
I mean, this would have been a very good topic 2 years ago on the podcast to really, because I think it's a really interesting example of a narrative in a video game. You can do a lot to kind of like break down what happens and a lot of the symbolism and stuff. But
right. So would you say Red Dead? We recommend this one?
Yes, I reckon if you haven't played Red Dead Redemption, sorry we spoiled the entire story for you, but it's 2 years old. You should have played at this point, but even then, it's awesome game.
Great game. So, Sean, what's going on?
I'm glad you finally got to finish it.
I have not finished it.
Okay, you basically finished. I mean, you're at the end part of the game.
Okay. I got to finish the stuff with Jack. Maybe after this podcast I can sit down and play some more. But anyway, what's up with you, Sean?
Not much, just school stuff. Been reading the Canterbury Tales, which is not hugely interesting. It's just one of those things where it's a very, very, very old book, and a lot of times very, very, very old books are not particularly interesting.
No, I'm reading for my Western political thought class, The Republic by Plato, because that 25-year-old tome is so relevant to our lives.
That's actually, just now in the Canterbury Tales, there was a reference to Plato, and what I loved about, I don't know, I think this is actually intentional, but the reference to Plato was basically shitting on Plato. Like, it was like this whole thing where it's like he was like, basically completely like saying that Plato said the complete opposite of what Plato had actually wanted to say. So it's like,
I want to get into a brief philosophical discussion, and I know that's as far away.
Yeah, this is like we're gonna have to rebrand the podcast now. Like, we're gonna have to. This is the WGTC Philosophical Podcast Radio edition.
This is not what listeners come to us for, but. So, we've been talking Western political thought, I mean, they're basically giving Plato a wet blowjob in every class, talking about, what an amazing person he was, and, like, how amazing his philosophy and flawless, and that if we disagree with it, we are, Hitler incarnate, whatever you want to say.
Because most of his philosophical points are so idealistic that they're not particularly relevant.
No, and here's my feeling, is that, so we're studying the Republic, and if you don't know the Republic, the whole thing is that it's Plato's dialogue where he... through a character he calls Socrates, who's based on the character isn't necessarily based, but the name is his mentor Socrates, is describing what he feels would be the ideal form of government because he's dissatisfied with Athenian democracy in real life and other forms of government he's seen, like oligarchies and whatnot. And so that's the Republic. But we're studying it in tandem with a shorter work called The Apology, which is the story of the real Socrates' trial under Athenian democracy and execution. And of course, the whole thing was that Athens believed in free speech, but they killed Socrates for corrupting the youth, which seems like, a big hypocrisy. And so that's sort of the argument.
Kind of sounds like something that would happen in Plato's The Republic.
And that's my fucking problem, is that...
So Plato's Republic is very, very kind of totalitarian.
It is. And my professor and my recitation advisor did not get this. And I was trying to explain to them, I'm saying... because the whole argument is that Plato's saying that Athenian democracy doesn't work because Socrates was killed, and that's my proof. And so in the Republic, I'm saying, you know what? Fuck these guys, I can rule. Because his point is philosophers should rule. So he's saying, he's bitter. He's saying, they didn't do it right, so I want to rule. And he has this whole section where he talks about how, and we are going to pick the myths for people. We are going to, he's going through like the Odyssey, and he says, these lines, they're good prose and they're good poetry and stuff, but they're not right for our society, so we will censor them. And he's saying, we will teach people this myth, or we'll teach people these various mythologies. And then he goes into the whole myth of how he's going to ingrain in the society that they were made of stone, and that these various metals. I don't know if you know about that whole part, but he's going to create a new creation myth for them, and make it real. And so he's talking about, like, he's stripping away any semblance of freedom of speech because he's getting rid of freedom of thought.
It's it's very 1984. It's actually it's I think the Republic's really interesting because it is like that, because it is very he's trying to like engineer people, like he's trying to social engineering. He's trying to manipulate people to like make them think the way he thinks because he thinks the way he thinks is the best way to think.
Right.
Because he's Plato.
Right. And I do not see how that is valuable as like I get it's valuable to study in terms of like history and everything.
Yeah, it's a cultural artifact. I find Plato interesting that way.
Right, but to hold him up as saying like this is this genius philosopher who had these great ideas, it's hypocrisy, and it's hypocrisy within his own canon of work. And it frustrates me on that level. And I know if there's actual philosophers listening to our podcast, which there aren't, they'd probably be frustrated. I'm sure I'm leaving stuff out. But I mean, that is what his argument boils down to in that section. And it's just, I don't know. It frustrates me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't particularly care for Plato's philosophy. Like, right. I'm much more an Aristotle kind of guy. I like the more grounded, realistic. Like, this is the way things are. We're going to look at the way things are, and like, but I do see how there is some value in Plato's idea of like this is the way things should be. Like how he wants to make things better. But I just find that concept tends to be very dangerous because then you're forcing people to be a way that those people probably don't want to be. Right,
and I actually do think it's fascinating to explore those hypocrisies and issues in that work from that standpoint, but when I'm being told that I should buy this as, like, gospel, that's what annoys me.
Which is funny because it's so contrary to how American society actually, like, our society is.
Yeah.
I
do believe in a counter to that, you know, we should have a society where people can think what they want to think. Because otherwise, you have totalitarianism, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Even if I strongly dislike the way a lot of people in this country talk, strongly.
Yes. So is that?
Do we want to reference the Democratic National Convention forcing God into every aspect of their platform?
That's like, but that was the greatest clip ever.
That was great.
The dude recalling the vote like 4 times. It was just like. God damn it, just vote for putting God back in. Just vote for it. I don't want to recall the vote again.
Even though it was kind of a nice step to, like, actually separate church and state for a minute, couldn't last.
Yeah. That's...
Now we're getting political. We shouldn't get political.
This ends the controversial, philosophical, and political section of the podcast.
Yes.
Hopefully you're still listening.
So... let's see, what else is going on in our lives? I have been getting a bunch of Blu-rays in the mail to review. So let's see, I just got the movie Cabin in the Woods. This is one of my favorite films of the year. It comes out September 18th. It's a very nice Blu-ray, got lots of good stuff. Sean and I both thought it would be cool. They've got an audio commentary on here with Joss Whedon, the writer, and Drew Goddard, the co-writer-director. That is probably a very fun audio commentary.
Yeah, that's especially that movie, since that movie's got such a kind of like... strange premise. It's got a very like analytical premise about horror movies in general. I think that's a good movie to have a commentary for.
Yes, and you should listen to it because I will say I met Drew Goddard at the Boulder premiere of The Cabin in the Woods. He was at the screening and he introduced the movie, did a Q&A afterwards, and fascinating guy, had a lot of good things to say. And I mean, the whole movie does come from his and Joss Whedon's personal views on their love of horror, but B, it's much more about criticizing sort of where horror has gone and sort of how it's been subverted with the audience and things. And I think it's a very interesting film, and it's interesting to hear him talk about it. And he had to... It's funny because in the interviews he did where he couldn't spoil things, he couldn't say anything, because it's not a movie... You could not spoil that. I mean...
Yeah.
It was... If you spoiled it, you kind of ruined it.
I guess. I mean, it's not like... Since the whole movie's based around... I mean, because the movie starts with...
Right.
What you would call the twist.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, I
mean, it's because it's maybe like, I don't know if you can spoil the premise of a movie.
I completely agree. And what I was just going to say is that they tried not to, and I think that was a good move because while we're accustomed to knowing the premise of a movie going in, I kind of like it when I don't. It's a fun and rare experience. And I saw Cabin in the Woods early enough that I didn't know a thing about it. Except that it was these guys.
I didn't know what the premise was when I went in.
And that was fun because I just loved discovering it. Mm-hmm. And but what I'm saying is that just when they can actually talk about it and they aren't trying to hide behind marketing and stuff, the discussion becomes really interesting, and that's what commentaries are for.
I don't know how you could possibly talk about the movie without spoiling it, because you have to talk about the movie without revealing what the movie's about.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Some of those interviews were
It would be like having like an interview with Peter Jackson about Lord of the Rings, and he's not able to mention the One Ring or the Fellowship at all in the entire interview.
Or it would be like James Cameron doing Titanic interviews and trying to hide the fact that Titanic sinks.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to spoil anything.
Speaking of which, that's the other Blu-ray.
Stay away from the History Channel if you want to get the full effect of the Titanic.
Yes. Speaking of which, that's the other Blu-ray I just got in the mail, is the Titanic 4-disc Blu-ray 2D combo pack. There's a 3D version out there also. And it comes out tomorrow from when you're listening to this podcast. And I have not popped it in yet, but I have to say I have never owned Titanic on like an optical media format. I think we had it on VHS way, way, way back when. It was actually the last movie I watched with my grandparents before they died. So on that VHS. But anyway, I've never owned it on DVD, but I guess it had a really erratic DVD history where it had like, when the VHS came out, they did one of those really early DVDs where they didn't even have anamorphic widescreen or anything like that, so it looked like garbage, had no features. Then they did a limited edition with some bonus features that was out for like a month, and then you couldn't get it after that. So it's sort of weird that the first billion-dollar grossing movie has never really been easily available on a DVD Blu-ray format.
Yeah.
And now it finally is, and it's nice to have it, because this is a movie I really like, and it's just finally nice to have sort of a definitive version. I guess they finally made like a documentary about the making of the movie on here, which is good, because it's got one of the most fascinating production histories of all time. Whether or not you like the movie, it's like Kate Winslet came out of it, for instance, hating James Cameron, because he basically directed like a dictator, because he was directing people on like this scale model of the Titanic in the sea. Tons of people got pneumonia. People were hospitalized. Like
it's like listening to people talk about being directed by Stanley Kubrick or Akira Kurosawa. It's like I don't know how you people survived that experience.
Right. I mean, it was
impressive.
I mean, Titanic went so over budget at one point, they were thinking of not even releasing it because they were sure they could not recoup a dime. The story turned out differently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's finally nice to have it. I have not watched the Blu-ray yet. But if it's anything like the theatrical presentation earlier this year when it had its 3D re-release, that was one of the best restorations for a modern film I've ever seen. I mean, they made it look like, even though I was seeing it projected digitally in 4K in 3D, it looked like a film print. I mean, it was that gorgeous. They did a phenomenal job. And previous versions of Titanic have actually not looked filmic at all because it was shot on Super 35, which is a format that allows them to open the matte to like 4:3 if they want for the VHS release, and then you don't have to crop it. But it also means that the movie can wind up looking kind of soft, and they fixed that, and that's really nice that they got it looking like film again. So, anyway, I recommend both of those because I like both of those movies. Well, I don't know if I've ever asked you, did you like Cabin in the Woods?
I thought it was okay. I thought it could have been a lot better. I think I thought like the horror parts of the movie just weren't particularly compelling because of the whole like it switching between the horror and the comedy. It's kind of like, I think we've talked about this problem on the podcast before, where if you have this like split like timeline where you've got like kind of like two different movies or two different stories going on at the same time, a lot of times the viewer will find one much more compelling than the other, and that kind of like hurts the movie. That's kind of how I felt about it.
Okay. I really loved Cabin in the Woods. It's still one of my favorite films of 2012, and what's interesting about it is that most critics I've seen agree with my perspective that they loved sort of the originality of it, that it was different than other things and all this. And then just sort of viewers like you, Sean, you don't go to every movie and review it.
Yeah.
You watch the movies you want to see. They were a little more lukewarm on it. And I think it's interesting that way because what compelled Cabin in the Woods for me is that I have to see everything that comes out. I watch movies all the time. And sometimes I feel fucking sick and tired of movies when I'm seeing the same Hollywood shit recycled over and over, and it just drains me, and I don't want to see it anymore. And then you sit down for a movie like Cabin in the Woods, and you have no idea what it's going to be about, and it's a really fun and original premise, and it's different, and it has something to say, and it was just such a nice shot of originality, the same way sort of Avengers was a couple months later for the superhero genre, that it was refreshing. But I can understand how if you don't have that perspective where you're sick of going to the theater, it may not do that for you.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, and I guess, it has a really original premise, but it's kind of, but the whole thing of like doing a horror movie to deconstruct horror movies has been done by Wes Craven like 5 times with like the Scream movies and then
but what I liked about
New Nightmare, it's just like, it's just kind of like, it was original, but that's not like, I didn't feel like that made the movie like great to me.
And I guess what I liked about the deconstruction elements is it did some of the deconstruction of the genre itself, but it was more, to me, a deconstruction of the audience. And that's what I really liked. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and it starts out being played for laughs, but it becomes very creepy, is when the two people, like the Chris Hemsworth character and his like dumb blonde girlfriend, are about to have sex, and all the people are there staring at them like saying, oh, we want to see boobies, and then we want to see her die. I thought that was a good deconstruction of some of the like slasher mechanics that have emerged in horror, where it's shifted from a genre where you're interested in being sort of mentally stimulated by scares and stuff, into sort of it's just a visceral like skin fest and gore fest.
Yeah, but I think you're kind of like looking at it as if like, because to me, like slasher movies are not horror movies. I mean, they're like kind of under that umbrella, but it's like slasher movies aren't scary. Unless you're like 12 years old. So it's like, to me, it's like they're very different. Like, I don't see that as like...
Right, but still, I mean, I agree with that. But that's a value judgment. They are still purported to be, they're advertised as, and they've overtaken the genre overwhelmingly in the last decade.
I mean, it's like the last 2 decades, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, but...
I mean, there aren't conventional horror films released these days. It's certainly not wide. I mean, there are a few.
I mean, this is like horror movies. There aren't like that many horror movies almost at all. Even like there's like the Final Destination and Saw movies are the only ones that are
Saw's
slasher movies.
Right.
I haven't even watched any of those because I don't.
Well, I mean, there's been so many remakes,
and then the remakes too. But
yeah, and I guess you could say Paranormal Activity tries to return to that, but it's just stupid jump scares.
I've never watched the Paranormal Activity movies. Like I don't watch most. Because there aren't that many horror movies that come out nowadays.
No.
But then there was just another thing that was just weird about Cabin in the Woods was the fact that the horror part was just Evil Dead. Like, it was like step for step Evil Dead.
Yeah.
I thought that was just kind of strange. I mean, even, I don't know, it might be like the same location or something, but that fucking, like, that drive up and, like, where that cabin is, I swear to God that is the cabin from the Evil Dead. Like, that looks exactly, like, the whole drive and everything looks exactly like it, so I think it might actually be the same.
Well, Drew Goddard did tell us at that screening that Evil Dead was one of his and Joss Whedon's very favorite movies. And I definitely informed it.
But yeah, it's
it was interesting. I mean, they incorporated a lot of stuff they love like that. Like just having Sigourney Weaver as the voice of God at the end.
Like, Sigourney Weaver, she just, like, comes the fuck out of nowhere at the very end.
Well, they wanted to include her just because, they talk about Alien being one of their favorite horror movies. And her being sort of, a kind of goddess of that time.
I will say one of my favorite things about Cabin in the Woods was, like, every once in a while, there's just, like, a few shots where there's, like, I knew, like, now that we have the Blu-ray, where it's like, if I just pause right here, there's, like, a dozen different Easter eggs, like, in the background of these shots. That's, like, like, I remember especially they had, like, the whiteboard in the one scene with, like, the list of all the different monsters.
Well, and I will say, from a standpoint of where I'm a critic who wants to see something new, the last half hour where they just bring all the monsters in, and it's just a fucking unbelievable bloodfest. It's batshit insane. You have the unicorn spearing the guy. I just, for me, it was like, how did they get that funded, is my question. And Drew Goddard said, I asked him that question. It's like, how did you get that funded? And he said, lots of hard work. We had to have a very specific pitch. And he said, and Lionsgate was just incredibly, incredibly nice about it and doing it. And he said, we did not actually expect we would get the movie funded.
Yeah, because, I mean, it does, like, the idea of the movie. It's basically like an indie movie. Yeah, so it is very strange that it's like this actual like theatrically released.
It's the kind of thing where I sense if Joss Whedon couldn't have gotten it funded through a studio, he would have done it Dr. Horrible style.
Yeah, like this definitely because it's such a strange premise for a movie. Well, because it's so self-referential. Like it's not. This normal movie story.
Yep. And then just going as far as having the world end and being like, done, there's no possibility for sequels, this is it.
Well, how the hell would you make a sequel to you could not possibly make a Cabin in the Woods.
Yes, but you would say that about a lot of horror movies that they take out of the hands of the creators.
Cabin in the Woods is a comedy, it's not a horror movie. Yeah. Cabin in the Woods, like it's not like
any movie.
There's I'm just saying, there's no possible way you could make a sequel to Cabin in the Woods. It's like with Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, like they would have to. The only way that would happen, it would be a straight to DVD video release called Cabin in the Woods 2 that would have nothing to do with Cabin in the Woods. That is the only way a sequel gets made.
I'm saying that has happened many, many times.
Not with a movie like The Cabin in the Woods. Like, what movie like Cabin in the Woods?
Well, I don't know. I don't think there are that many movies.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no way with that premise you could possibly do another movie.
I'm just saying, they made Butterfly Effect 2 and 3 for fucking, like, DVD. And that movie killing himself in the womb.
The only way it could happen is a straight-to-DVD release that has basically nothing to do with the original movie.
Anyway, I'm just saying.
It'd be like a Disney sequel.
Right. I love the audacity of the film, and I'm glad it's out now. It's sort of funny they timed this. This comes out, I mean, I have it now, but I think it comes out September 18th, and then the week after is Avengers, so they're releasing it kind of like they went out in theaters, like one before the other. I actually think they do make kind of a fun double feature, even though Cabin in the Woods was meant to come out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then MGM got defunded.
Well, because Cabin in the Woods has Thor in it.
Right. Well, I was going to say, I think they are...
Thor double feature.
Right. I do think they sort of energize their respective genres they're referencing or discussing. And obviously Avengers is a superhero movie straight through, but it still does a lot of stuff of sort of re-energizing parts of the superhero movie we're either used to or tired of or whatever. So, if anyone would like to send me the Avengers Blu-ray in the mail, that would be great! So we can talk about that one. We will praise it. We loved the movie. We will give you positive press.
We can just kick out our old Avengers podcast when the Blu-ray comes out.
Yeah.
We can take a week off.
Yeah. No, Sean, now they'll know. Damn it.
Did everyone stop listening after the Play-Doh talk? Don't worry.
Okay, that's fine. We can talk about whatever we want now. No. So the other Blu-ray I reviewed recently, and this is going to be a mini topic in and of itself.
That is the reason for our opening theme.
Yes. Is I was sent the Terminator Anthology, which is a Best Buy exclusive Blu-ray release that compiles all 4 Terminator movies in sort of their best available Blu-ray versions. It's got nothing new, but if you've never owned the movies before on Blu-ray, and I never have, it's a really good set. It's only like $35 maybe at Best Buy, or it was on sale. Maybe it's a little more now, but even for like $50, I think it's a good deal for four movies in relatively good... I mean, they're all the best quality they've ever been presented in. There's some issues here and there, which we'll talk about. But I basically watched all 4 to review it, and Sean watched 1 and 2 with me.
Yeah.
And so let's start at the beginning. Number 1. I mean, we had not seen these movies in a long time.
Yeah, I can't remember when I must have watched Terminator 1 when I was like 14, and I haven't seen it since.
Yeah, I mean,
I've watched Terminator 2 a few times.
Right. I think it's the same with both of those. I've watched them a couple times, but I mean, I bought them on DVD a long time ago, and I haven't busted them out in forever. So this was the first time in a while, and god damn does Terminator 1 hold up. Better than I ever would have expected.
Yeah, Terminator 1 is a really, really, really good movie. Like, I remembered it being a good movie, but I didn't remember it being that good.
I know. There's a relentless sort of just efficiency to it, where it's like, Terminator comes back, Kyle Reese comes back, and it's, bitches, let's do this.
Yeah, let's find Sarah Connor, and then once you do, let's kill her / let's protect her.
Yeah.
And that's the whole movie.
But with really good character work ingrained throughout there.
Mm-hmm.
I think James Cameron obviously is a filmmaker who can be driven by his own excess as much as anything else, but what makes his work so good in Terminator is that he had no excess to work with. And I think I would like to see James Cameron make another $6 million movie at some point in his life and not be given $300 million. Yeah. Because I think it would help him.
I agree.
Because Terminator is sort of reined in by its budget on story fronts, too, where he can't go as big with the war elements as he wants. So we just see the snippets, and I think those are honestly more compelling than if you had full-blown sequences of warfare.
Yeah, especially with some of the most interesting stuff in the first Terminator movie are like the 3 or so scenes of Kyle Reese in the future fighting against the robots. And yeah, they're very sparse, and I love just they don't show that much, and it leaves a lot of that future to your imagination, and just the style they have where it's all dark, it's these broken down cityscapes, it's there's mist everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting vision of this post. I can't think of another version of a post-apocalyptic future that looks like that.
No, it's
even nowadays where it's post-apocalyptic is every other thing that comes out.
Right, and it's completely different, and it just looks great. And it's, again, when we're talking about how much you can imagine, what's great is that they give you this wonderful foundation, and then you can go off and think about how do the other parts of that world work. But it also, I mean, I like it.
Where the hell did everyone get pulse rifles? When did... It's this movie takes place in, the future portions are, Los Angeles 2026, and everyone's running around with, laser guns. It's when did we invent laser guns? 2026 is not that far off, even from when the Terminator movies were actually released.
Right. I mean, I could maybe get Skynet...
Not the far distant future.
I can understand maybe Skynet developing them, but not the humans.
That's not completely implausible. I mean, it is implausible, but it's you can kind of see that.
So is robots just taking over the world.
But... Yeah, but it's just but the laser guns, it's
no.
How and why? You don't need to have laser guns in every sci-fi thing ever.
No, you do not. But anyway, it's still cool future stuff. But then also on just the human side of it, I think James Cameron has a tendency to very much... He's a romantic at heart, and he puts that into all his movies, and I think it's funny for a guy who comes off as relatively... not cold, but detached in interviews. Mm-hmm. He is very much, his movies, you look at them, they're very romantic at their core. Yeah. But I think Terminator, it holds it in to a degree where, to me, it's more emotionally powerful, that there's no real big swooning or anything. It's just these two people who are in the shittiest of circumstances.
Yeah, they're just, thrust together, and their, lives are completely destroyed, and they're completely traumatized. It's just I mean, it's something weird about like the Terminator movies is that a lot of times I don't know if the Terminator movies realize what it is they're actually doing. It's like I don't know if James Cameron wanted that like the Kyle Reese Sarah Connor romance to be like this like big like this is like this romantic adventure and this like they fall in love and they're like truly in love with each other. I don't know if he wanted it to be like that. It kind of feels like he wanted it to be like that.
But that's not the movie.
Yeah, but that's not how it comes across. It really does come across as like this. If they had survived, they would have broken up in like a week. Like it would have been completely dysfunctional. They know almost nothing about each other. It's like this completely dysfunctional relationship that's motivated by adrenaline.
Well, I mean, she's still in some respects a kid. And he is
like 18 years old.
And he's broken. I mean, he is fucked up. I mean, there's one of the best scenes is where he's having PTSD flashbacks to the war, and you're cutting between him, sort of, and the crane that's setting it off. I mean, he would not be able to live any sort of normal life. He has no idea how to live in this present, or the past for him.
Yeah.
He can't. I mean, he can't even understand when talking to the cops that toning down his
his raging insanity.
Yeah. Because he is, I mean, he's a veteran who's just, he hasn't even really exited the war. He's still fighting.
Yeah.
And he's messed up because of it. And his fate sucks.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean,
that's what makes that relationship so interesting is that it is, like, this completely dysfunctional. They're just, like, completely fucked at this point, so you might as well fuck.
Yeah. Right. And, I mean, that's how the sex scene plays to me more than anything is that like there has to be some release from their own stress.
Yeah, because this like 8-foot tall Austrian dudes come to kill you.
Which I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here where you laugh at Arnold Schwarzenegger because it's legitimately funny, not meant to be funny, but it is. But when it counts, he's a scary motherfucker.
Yeah, it's like when the police station shootout where he just like comes in, and he's just like killing everybody.
Yeah,
it's a really good scene.
Yep. And that's not a scene I think you could do in the year 2012 because
like he kills like 20 cops and like it's on screen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying. I mean, you've got this, like, the bass drums, like, like, that's what's going through the scene. And it's played for full horror that this is a major massacre. If you read that in, like, the newspaper, your like, week would be ruined. You'd be so sad.
Yeah, it's just, like, that's one of the, you just brought it up, that's one of the interesting things about the first Terminator movie that I had forgotten, is that it is basically a horror movie.
Yes.
It's the Terminator hunting them down, and you can't stop him.
Yeah.
And it's played for horror. It's supposed to be scary, and it is.
And Cameron's understanding of horror language is exquisite.
Yeah.
He just gets how to frame it, how to edit it, how you use music. I mean, we think of it as sort of this sweeping techno score, but it's actually just a little sort of intense techno score meant to propel the horror of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, really good movie. And the best scene for me is the last action sequence where the Terminator becomes stop-motion Terminator.
Yeah.
And that is, again, I mean, that is a wonderful effect. Just brilliant work by, I think it's Phil Tippett who did that. And it's an amazing effect. It's relatively seamless. I mean, you can tell it's stop-motion in some scenes, but that's not a problem to me or you, I know.
Yeah, and to me also, there's something about stop motion, something like the way they did it. It feels kind of robotic.
Yes,
and it's like so it works for the Terminator. I feel
it works perfectly, and that scene is so well shot and edited again and staged. It plays as it's the most horrifying scene in the movie to me. Like I know how it ends, but I'm still horrified by it, and I think part of why that works so well is at the end. It's not really a happy ending.
Yeah,
I mean, Kyle's killed. He basically blows himself up in the end to stop this thing. That doesn't stop it. Sarah's like leg is broken and her body's like shattered trying to stop it. That doesn't. Finally, she has to like hit a button and crush the damn thing and deliver the most awkward line reading, which is "You're Terminator, fucker."
Yeah,
it's pretty much how it comes
like
out.
she like this the awkward one-liner that has to get thrown out at the very end. Her yippee-ki-yay.
Yep. Feels like they did that was their first take, and they're like, we're out of money.
Yeah, it's just like, shit, we ran out of film.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't buy any more.
Yep. There goes the whole half hour where she visits her gynecologist and learns out she's pregnant, and
there's all the stuff with the UFO, we just couldn't fit it all in.
Yes. So, yeah, Terminator's really good, and what Sean and I discovered watching Terminator 1 and 2, more or less back-to-back, is we like 1 more than 2.
Yeah, which is weird because I remember because I've seen Terminator. Like this was the 4th time I've seen Terminator 2. Like
probably my 4th or 5th too. Yeah,
so I've seen it a lot and I really love it. But it's like, yeah, when you watch it back to back, it's at the very least, Terminator 1 is a movie that has less flaws.
Yes.
I'm not sure if like it always reaches quite the same peaks that Terminator 2 does.
I definitely don't. I think how I described it when we watched it is Terminator 2 has more individual elements I love. Like, for instance, it makes better use of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, a lot better use.
Right. I mean, he's a fucking badass throughout that and has good dramatic moments, too.
I know now why you cry.
Yeah. I mean, that is a fucking heartbreaking ending.
It's a really sad scene.
But I also think it's got more problems, and I actually want to throw this over to you, Sean, when you talk about
Red-headed mullet kid. That's number one problem. The red-headed mullet kid for the first, 15 minutes of the movie. I hate that kid. It's, he's so 90s, that red-headed mullet. It's just, I just want to slap him.
I know.
Every time he was on screen. But then he just gets pushed, and then he's just, gone for the rest of the movie. That's good.
Yep. And that kid, I think that was his role, though, in movies of that period, was to be the kid you want to slap. Because I believe that kid is also the best friend in Tom Hanks' Big. And I don't know if you've seen Big ever, Sean, but...
It's just forever ago.
Okay. But I that's one of the things I distinctly remember about that movie, is that kid, he's supposed to be sort of this sincere human touchstone character who's that's Tom Hanks' connection to his childhood. But you just want to slap the damn kid. It's like, Tom Hanks he fucking cockblocks Tom Hanks at several moments. I mean, yes, I know the guy is a 15-year-old at heart, but he's with a beautiful older woman. Don't cockblock him, kid. Don't.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Anywho. That was a random dissection. But I want to throw it over to you, Sean, to talk about how Terminator 2, more egregiously than 1, kind of misunderstands what it's about.
Well, yeah, because there's something weird with the Terminator movies where because the whole thing is, Kyle comes back and he has the speech from John Connor that he tells to Sarah of this, there's no fate but what we make for ourselves. And it's so it's he's saying, we can change the future, which is fucking bullshit, because the entire premise of Terminator is based on people from the future coming back, because if Kyle doesn't come back, John is never born.
Yes.
So it's you can't, the events that are set in motion because of what happens in the future because of the time travel.
Yes, I mean, it's got a very unique view on time travel and fourth-dimensional sort of physics, is that it always is happening. There's no initial run through the timeline, like in Back to the Future or something, because if there were, John Connor would never exist. He could never send Kyle
there's
back.
it's not like Back to the Future where you make split timelines or anything like that. It's,
right.
It's definitely, to me, the physics of, the crazy time physics of the Terminator universe, it feels like this is this one track, you are set in motion. There basically is fate in the Terminator universe. There is no free will, because everything you do has already happened.
Right.
You have
and I think it's funny, because if you view Terminator 1 in a vacuum, which is how it was created, just as one movie, that's kind of where it ends up, is them thinking about, well, maybe we can change things, but no, the ultimate revelation of the film is this is how it always had to happen. She had to fall in love with Kyle and then lose him. She had to be traumatized so that she could become strong.
Yeah, and then she has to be with Kyle so that she can have John, and she has to become traumatized and strong so that she can teach John about the future.
And then, and that's the thing, is that Terminator does work as a one-movie film. As it doesn't need a sequel, because at that point the amount of free will that exists is that these people can make the right choices that will lead to the right future. Mm-hmm. Or at least the future where they will have a chance. And that's kind of the inspiring part of the movie.
I don't think
it's not inspiring, but it's
to me, it's that couldn't possibly happen, because it's that's already, if you think about it, it's if it has happened a million times.
No. What I mean is rising to I'm talking about rising to your own fate. Her realizing at the end of the movie, she's not going and hiding. She's saying, I'm going to rise to meet what I know is going to come.
Yeah, but she's going to do that anyways, because that's a decision she always has to make.
That's true.
I don't see there's any uplifting or anything. It's we've destroyed human free will. There's nothing this is you are on the track of time and you can't divert from it.
Uplifting is the totally wrong word. Yeah. I was not searching for that word. I just mean, I guess, that's how it all falls together, and it feels right for that movie.
Yeah.
But
once again, I don't think Terminator understands that that's what it's doing.
Terminator 2 certainly does.
Because Terminator 2 kind of fucks things up. Because Terminator 2 is weird because it does stuff that sort of reaffirms that interpretation that I feel is the better interpretation. Because to me, it's more interesting of you are set on the track of time.
And how it reaffirms that is that the presence of the Terminator...
Yeah, because it creates Skynet and the Terminator. So it's the Terminator has to go back in time to be destroyed in order to find the chip so that they can make Skynet. It's just like, so the Skynet creates itself basically by using the fucking crazy time travel shit.
Yeah.
So it's like it reaffirms that, but then there's all the stuff with they're blowing up Cyberdyne, which is supposed to somehow stop Skynet from coming about, where it's just like, but that doesn't make any sense because it's like, this has all already happened. Like, you can't, how are you changing it now? This doesn't, so it's like, and it doesn't feel like the movie understands. But then, what's interesting about the later Terminator movies is that they basically say, fuck it, Skynet happens anyways. So it's like, then Terminator goes back on it and says, yes, you can't change shit.
Right.
There is a fate besides what you make for yourself.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why, Sean, do you and I kind of agree that the Sarah Connor Chronicles is either our favorite thing in the Terminator universe or one of our favorite things?
Yeah, it's definitely, like, I prefer that, like, continuation to the series.
Right. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that it sets itself on a more, to me, logical progression of the temporal events, where they kind of finally do accept, all right, it's happening, let's get ready. That's kind of the arc of the series. And then, of course, we can talk about that. I mean, that ties around beautifully with everything. It keeps hammering home those themes.
Yeah.
But so Terminator 2, James Cameron did craft these very clearly as a self-contained duology, where Terminator 2, whether you agree with the logic of it or not, does end on the note that they've saved the world.
Yeah, it does end with, like, okay, we stop Skynet.
But if that's how time travel worked in that world, when the Terminator finishes lowering himself in, John would disappear. And
if you think about, like, the timeline stuff, because now it's like the stuff that allowed John Connor to exist no longer happened. Like, all the stuff didn't happen.
Right.
It's like, now, this movie never happened, so now Skynet can exist again. Like, it's crazy time travel paradox no matter how you look at it. Which is why there is no fate. Or there is a fate. That you are set on the track of time. That kills paradoxes, and that's why I think it's the preferred. I would prefer if they, like, realized that that's kind of what the movies were about anyways before they decided to fuck with it.
Well, what if the alternate ending to Terminator 2 had been, so he lowers himself in, heartbreaking moment, the thumbs up, and then Sarah has to turn to John and say, goodbye. And then suddenly there's like a puff of bright white light, and like she's back as 18-year-old Sarah in the first movie, and she has some of her, like, it's like hazy, like she has some awareness that this has happened before, and then like Kyle Reese walks into the diner or something, and you like end on like a cut to black,
and then you just hear this, and then the doctor walks in. That's how it would happen.
Okay. Anyway,
Doctor Who Terminator crossover needs to happen. The Doctor will figure out all the crazy fucking how to fix the time inconsistencies in Terminator movies.
Well, it's wibbly wobbly time. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Sean hates that.
So, it's like, we could have just cut out the last 10 minutes of the podcast and just said wibbly wobbly timey wimey if we wanted to.
Yeah, but we're not.
Apparently, that fixes all discussion of sci-fi movies.
But we are not annoying fanboys.
Yeah.
Well, at least not to ourselves.
Yeah, that means we're probably annoying fanboys, but we're not that kind of annoying fanboy.
Right. We're not Doctor Who subreddit.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, let's see. So those are the first two Terminator movies. I mean, we should stress we really do like Terminator 2 a whole lot.
Yeah, no, Terminator 2, we've only focused on some of, like, the weird stuff that we noticed rewatching it, but yeah, Terminator 2's awesome action movie. Great.
Yeah, right.
Love it.
But the Blu-ray, I want to go back. Terminator 1 on Blu-ray looked pretty damn good, didn't it?
Yeah, considering this, like, it's Terminator 1. It's not like, it doesn't look like Avatar. But
right. I think that's...
for what it is, it looks good.
Right. Short of a Herculean restoration, like if they were to get the fucking, like, Library of Congress and everyone involved, that's what the movie looks like. It's grainy, and it should be grainy. It's a 35mm shot movie. You don't cut that stuff out. That's what it looks like. But it's got a lot of dirt and stuff on the print, and some of that is actually optical noise that you cannot get rid of because that's how the effects were done. Mm-hmm. And, that's what it looks like, but the clarity was excellent. You could see a lot of detail. Like, if anything, the effects looked better when you could see more, I thought. Mm-hmm. Like, especially the stop motion. Yeah. I really liked seeing this Terminator that way. Just a good-looking Blu-ray. That's the best the movie's ever looked, so I recommend that.
The only thing was, like, and I don't know if this was just, like, our TV or something, but I remember the sound mix was a little strange.
Yeah. Well, and we don't have like, a 5.1 setup here right now.
Like, a great sound setup.
And I think that's what it is, because I tried it on my home TV, where I have an actual, like, 5.1 setup, and it sounded great. And I think it's that when you're downgrading a 5.1 to a stereo, some things can become wonky, because if you think about it, you're taking 5 channels, putting them into 2, and dialogue normally would be coming out of one of those that would be louder than the others, but now you're taking 4 that would have the surround stuff. Yeah. Those become loud, and the dialogue becomes quiet. So, that can happen.
Yeah.
But Terminator 2...
But we should note, the menus on Terminator 1...
Oh, fuck those!
They were, like, loud as shit, because we had to... Because the dialogue was so quiet on the sound mix, we had to pump up the volumes really loud, and then whenever you had to, like, pause or something, the Blu-ray menu came up, and then it had, like, this really loud, like, mechanical... this mechanical whine, and it would just, like, was deafening. It was the most annoying thing in the world.
And, Warner Brothers used to do that on their early Blu-rays, but they would at least have a menu option of turn off sounds. This did not have that.
Like, that's one of the things that... I hate that about the world we live in today with all, like, the devices and stuff, is that everything has to make a fucking noise.
I know.
It's like, I don't want my phone to make a noise when I get an email. I don't want my computer to make a noise when I change volume levels, when I mute, like, when I touch things. It's like, I don't want everything to make a noise. I want to specify what makes noises, and without it, like, assuming that everything needs to make a noise.
I completely agree, and it's like you don't usually watch Blu-rays, so we were talking about how much better the menus are on Blu-rays, because they fixed all those problems of how there's all these different menus. They've made it just one. It's seamless, but it's like you take several steps forward, but then one step back with all the noises.
It's like eventually we're going to be at a point where, like, keyboards beep every single time you press a key. Like, we are
That's
almost
what
there.
the iPad does!
It's like, it's like fucking, like, with the iPhone, it's like, I don't want it to make a little clacking noise when I press it. It's like, I know I pressed the key! I can see that I press Q, it shows Q on the fucking screen. I don't need to go, click, every single time. It's like, it's a touch screen. It doesn't make a clicking noise. That's one cool thing about it. It doesn't need to make a fake click noise for me. I can make the click noise in my head. I can go that far for you, iPhone. You don't need to click for me. Fuck's sake. It's like, and then it took me like 5 minutes to, like, delve into the iPhone menus to, like, where the fuck is the turn off the click noise button? Because this is driving me insane.
I know, we're on a tangent.
Yeah, but
Terminator
pisses me off.
I know. So Terminator 1 Blu-ray looked and sounded good. Terminator 2 Blu-ray looked like garbage.
It looked exactly like the DVD version that I used to watch.
Yep. I mean, there were some upticks here and there where colors looked better. There was a little more fine detail. But on the whole, it didn't just look like the DVD. It looked like a DVD where you had the same issues where there was, like, you could spot compression issues. Mm-hmm. It was like waxy facial textures and stuff. Those things that we all sort of didn't like about DVD and upgraded to Blu-ray for. And it's like, I just don't... And to be fair, part of that is that Terminator 2, like Terminator 1, is locked at a certain sort of resolution. But because it was Terminator 2, the way it was shot on Super 35 means it's a little softer to begin with. James Cameron used this sort of blue color filter that sort of dumbed everything down more. Mm-hmm. And then it was so processed at the time because of early CGI effects. A lot of that got hit harder. But even then, you could make it look better than that. I mean, it looked like you could at least make it look better than the fucking DVD. That was a disappointment. Yeah. I mean, especially because Terminator 2 has always made so much money on every release. Couldn't you take a couple million and make it look nice?
You'd think so.
Yeah, you would think so. So
maybe it'll happen someday, and then you can get Terminator 2 Super Mega Special Edition Blu-ray Judgment Day edition. Yeah,
so Terminators 3 and 4... they look and sound perfect because they were made recently, but they're not necessarily good movies.
Yeah, I've watched little bits of Terminator 3. I've seen nothing of Terminator 4 and don't particularly care to. Like I said, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. I like that continuity. I like it way better. For the sake with the other continuities.
Right. For the sake of discussion, I will say, I liked Terminator Salvation when it first came out, and I've come to dislike it mainly because it's just completely unmemorable. I remember almost nothing about it, and then when I've gone back and watched parts, I don't like a lot of the decisions they made. Part of it is that they went to the future, and that was a good decision, like finally going and showing the future. But they didn't make it look anything like James Cameron's version. You know?
Like when the one thing I remember, the main thing that made me completely disinterested in the movie is when the trailer came out, and it looked like a trailer for, like, Black Hawk Down. Like, They were, like, in the desert. It was all brown. I was just like, this is so wrong. Like, this is... Yeah. Did you not see the other Terminator movies? It's black, destroyed cityscapes, fog everywhere, pulse rifles. Like, that's what the Terminator future is like. This, like, desert warfare bullshit.
No, and it was
not Call of Duty.
Right, and it was completely different than the original Terminator continuity that way. It's got a phenomenal production design in a vacuum. Like, it's a beautiful movie, visuals-wise. but it doesn't feel like Terminator to me in that way, and those are some issues it's got. But so it's got a lot of nice visual things to it. It doesn't really have that good a story. I think probably its most prominent sort of quality is that the guy who plays Kyle Reese, can't believe... Oh, Anton Yelchin, who you would know as, like, Chekhov in the Star Trek reboot. He's a really good Kyle Reese. He's almost... I mean, he's giving probably a better performance, critically speaking, than Michael Biehn in the original Terminator, because he was kind of erratic in that movie. Mm-hmm. But he does a really good job showing sort of an idealistic version of this guy who is going to get completely fucked over.
Yeah.
And that's the only area where a sequel would have been interesting to me. And I actually wish the arc, and that's my problem, is the arc of the movie should have been John and Kyle getting to know each other, and then John sending Kyle off to death. That would be a good contained arc for a movie. Yeah. But that's not what they did. They do the thing with the Sam Worthington character, and it's completely boring, but whatever. And the other kind of quality thing is that Christian Bale is miles away the best actor to ever play John Connor. He has absolutely no competition because Edward Furlong was not that great in Terminator 2, and Nick Stahl was just weird casting in Terminator 3. And, you can easily buy Christian Bale as a military commander. He has the look. He's got the voice. It works. Yeah. But, so, Terminator Salvation is sort of lowered in my estimation. But Terminator 3, I hated when I first saw it, and I kind of liked it rewatching it on this Blu-ray set. I think it's got interesting ideas, and I think it does a good job sort of redirecting the timeline from, the future is not set to... Turns out it is set, but we've got to strengthen ourselves for it, and it's got a phenomenal ending. They actually went there and did Judgment Day, where John Connor is there's this massive third act, big action climax, actually some really good action scenes, and they're all just trying to get to this bunker where they're going to be able to stop Skynet. Like, this is the location where they can destroy the computers. They think they can do it again, but they get there and they've been misdirected, and then bombs start going off. And they're in this bunker, so they're safe, he and his girlfriend. But the world's fucked, and from that bunker, there's a communication device, and he starts giving orders and leading the resistance. That's a great ending, and you haven't seen it, I know, but you're nodding.
That's a good idea for an ending,
right?
I can see,
right, and there's some good stuff.
See that movie,
right, and there's some good stuff in the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, who's yet another version of the T-800, discussing all these things like the future kind of is set. This Judgment Day is inevitable. But, you can still prepare and rise to meet it and all these things.
You just have to bullshit to Kyle in a couple of years and send him back in time.
Right. You have to make him hot for your mother.
It's so weird.
It's very weird. But anyway, so Terminator 3's actually got a lot of good things about it. It's got a lot of fucking terrible things about it, too, like the Terminator going into a strip club, a male strip club. And that's where he gets his clothes, and they want him to dance, and he says, I do not know what you are asking me to do. And then he wears, pink frilly sunglasses for a couple minutes. There's some silly stuff like that. And Nick Stahl is not a compelling John Connor, but there's still a lot of good stuff in it, and it's got one of my single favorite movie car chases of all time. It's basically the evil Terminator in the movie, who's a girl Terminator, and nowhere near as cool as Summer Glau's Terminator, but that's another issue. She's driving this massive truck with a crane on it, and the crane is just destroying everything, and they did it mostly with practical effects, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's hanging off the end, and they're and John Connor is driving this tiny little veterinarian truck, and it's a really, really cool car chase, and I recommend the movie for that alone. But yeah, so that's our little discussion of Terminator.
Yeah, can I just say one thing? Why the fuck does Skynet keep on remaking Arnold Schwarzenegger's? What's the point? Because it's the whole reason you have the Terminators looking like people is to try to trick the Resistance. So it's the fifth time fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger walks up to the camp, they're going to be like, "Come on, dude, we get it. You're a fucking robot. We've got a pile of you out back. It's just we're just going to kill you again." Yep. Why do they keep on making the same fucking Terminator? It's I get that they're all T-800s, but it's can't you get someone that's I don't know, he's got it's a Russian 8-foot-tall bodybuilder, and you have an Irish 8-foot-tall bodybuilder. You can vary it up a little bit.
Tour the nations. Terminator 3 does have actually a semi-good explanation for that, for this one particular T-800, is that Skynet created him because they knew John had an emotional attachment to him from his youth. and they tried to pretend that like this was another one that had been turned, and so he tells the story to John that in the future this very model actually assassinated John Connor by tricking him with the emotional attachment, and then John's wife, reprogrammed it and sent it back to protect him. But this is the model that kills John in the future. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, that is a cool idea.
So, and then at the end of the movie they kind of play with that. But anyway, so that's sort of our little Terminator discussion. Should we talk about Dinosaurs on a Spaceship?
I think we should.
So if you have not seen this week's Doctor Who, see it. It's great. But spoilers ahead.
Yes, mega spoilers.
Can you believe Amy was killed by Rory?
I know! And the Doctor was a woman the entire time. I had no idea.
It's crazy.
The clues are scattered all throughout the show's history. It's like everything came together.
I mean, if you look at episode 1 with William Hartnell, they were planning it from then.
Yes, from the very beginning.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, what's Dinosaurs on a Spaceship actually about?
It's Dinosaurs on a Spaceship.
Yeah.
It's about fucking over every single Silurian continuity. It's like what they did with the Daleks last time with the Dalek continuity. It's like, this is like twofold. It's like, I have no idea what's going on with the Silurians anymore. It's like, since when could they build spaceships? Fuck, it's like, if they could build spaceships that can travel across galaxies, why did they go under the ground? Like, just fucking leave then! Like, why did only, 100 of you fuckers leave with some Triceratopses? Like, all of you go! Like, if you think the world's gonna get destroyed, don't hide underground and then have your, hibernation thing fuck up for, every single group of Silurians, so you can have, 5 episodes where another, group comes out of hibernation. It's like, then just leave. It's like... God, it's it's the next. I mean, they've already fucked up the the Cybermen are good. I have no idea. I have no idea I don't know what happened to the old Cybermen. I don't know where the new parallel universe Cybermen are. It's just insanity. The Daleks, Scaro's back. Whatever. It's now Silurians can build spaceships. It's now the Suntarans are going to be. I don't know. They're going to be all they do is make pretty dresses. It's they're just changing everything.
So are you saying this completely ruined the episode for you?
No, I'm not saying that. It's Doctor Who, continuity is crazy, but it's just I don't know, it's just weird because it's what they did with the Daleks and now with the Silurians, it's just it was just strange to have 2 episodes back to back that completely flip continuity on ancient, on old Doctor Who stuff.
Yeah. And I will say, that did not, that I did notice the Dalek stuff this week. I did not think of the Silurian stuff until you noted it, because I've only seen one Silurian,
I mean, there aren't that many Silurian
right.
stories, even in Classic Who. There's 2 or 3.
Right. I think I may have seen an old one, but I'm pretty sure I've just seen
Doctor Who and the Silurians. It's I love that it's the only episode of Doctor Who that has Doctor Who in the title. I have no idea why the fuck they just called that one's called Doctor Who and the Silurians. It's the only one.
Well, hey, speaking of the title Doctor Who, are you happy? Are you happy, Sean, that this episode had no references whatsoever to Doctor Who?
Yes, I was worried the Triceratops was going to say it at some point. I was glad that it didn't. I thought when the Triceratops was dying, the Doctor's just it's okay. It's I'm a doctor, I'm here. It's Doctor Who. And then it dies.
Or you could have something you've got to let me ride you, Triceratops. I'm the Doctor.
Doctor Who?
All right, so you had none of that. You were happy with that.
Yes, I was very glad that there wasn't any crazy, Solomon screaming Doctor Who right before he gets blown up.
Okay.
I was glad that didn't happen.
All right, so
it's the 2 things that pissed me off about the last episode, they only did one of them in this episode.
Okay.
So it's hopefully the next one, there will be none, because it looks like there's no classic, it's just it's a Western story in the next one.
Yeah.
So unless they, pull, the gunslingers from, the old Doctor Who and, completely fuck over the Old West completely.
But you didn't like that one to begin with, the old Gunslingers.
Yeah, no, but it's I'm saying the old Gunslinger, unless it pulls that one. If it does the exact same thing that episode did...
Recap for the listeners.
Okay, there's a really, really, really old, one of my least favorite. I'm the only one who has this opinion. There's not a lot of people who've seen that much old Doctor Who that I know. But it's it's just very... I think it's either Gunslingers or Gunstringer. No, Gunstringer's a Kinect game. Never mind. It's Gunslingers. And it's a Doctor Who episode where it's the Doctor at the OK Corral shootout, but they just completely fuck everything up. All the story, everything about it's just wrong. And I'm pretty sure the only reason they did that story was so that they could have the Doctor meet Doc Holliday, which is that's a decent motivation, but it's like, when everything about Doc Holliday is wrong, it's like, it's like 1965, you can't do, like, this drunk all the time, just, like, kills people, like, those type of characters. You can't be that dark. It's like, it's a terrible, terrible Doctor Who story. It's like, all the British people making a story about the American West just doesn't work out, with all British people in the cast.
Yes.
Doesn't work out that well.
But A Town Called Mercy, which will be episode 3 of the season, looks better.
Yes.
So.
It seems to be about a cyborg that goes into an Old West town. I don't know if it's an actual, like, Earth Old West town, or, like, a Star Trek-y style, like, some planet that just happens to have evolved to the point where they're right at the Old West for some reason.
Yes.
Who knows?
That was one of Star Trek's favorite things.
It was just to encounter planets where it's like, this planet's just like 1940s gangster Chicago.
Because that's a natural stage of evolution.
Yes, it's like, that's how it happens.
All right.
All civilizations go through the 1940s gangster Chicago, like, step.
Even for us, Sean, we've gotten incredibly off track.
Yeah.
So let's just go back to the beginning, and before we get into more specifics...
November 23rd, 1963, an episode came out, An Unearthly Child, starring William Hartnell and Carol Ann Ford.
Shut up. We're going to get into specifics of this episode, but for our first thing is overall opinions of Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I fucking loved this episode, and I'll say right off the bat, I immediately understood why I was probably going to be on a bit of an island on this one, just because this episode played to things I really, really like in Doctor Who, and I just really like when Doctor Who... It's a show with so much potential. You can do anything with Doctor Who, and I like it when a writer says, hey, I can do anything, and they do it. And so the first 5 minutes of this episode put a massive smile on my face, where writer Chris Chibnall, who, kudos to you for having so much fun with this script, was just, he starts in Egypt, and we pick up one character, and then we've got a 1900s... We've got a 1900s
like
era...
Big Game Hunter.
Like total chauvinist, who Rupert Graves, fucking perfect.
No, it was... I mean, he picked up the dude from Jurassic Park who gets killed by the Velociraptors. He picked up that guy! Like...
But anyway, so...
Weird.
But I love that we've got all of those. We meet Amy and Rory's dad. We pick him up, and then we go into space. We find out there's missiles coming towards the ship. We get on the ship. The ship is a really cool set design, and then it's got dinosaurs on it. And I'm like, I'm on board. You're using the premise of the show, not maybe to its max, but you're really, really mining it. Like, there's no other TV show where you could have all those elements.
There is no other TV show where you can have like four British people, Queen Nefertiti, the dude from Jurassic Park, on a spaceship like 100 years in the future, about to get destroyed off of like Earth, around Earth's orbit. That was made by Silurians, who are Homo reptilia from like the ancient past of Earth, who have taken dinosaurs and put it on this ship. And there's a dude named Solomon, who he's like this creepy like
space pirate.
A space pirate dude who tries to capture the dinosaurs to sell them, but then he tries to capture Queen Nefertiti to sell them, and then one of the British people with the bow tie blows him up.
Yes.
You could not do that on any other show. I agree with you there.
And don't you have to love it for that, at least a little bit?
To be fair, it's like, I think if you took like, I don't know, like a lot, like if like Lost, it's like, I don't think every single show could do an episode of Lost, but with Doctor Who, you're especially right. Yes, no other show could do this episode.
Yes, and that's one of the things I love about it. And
although, wouldn't you like it if Mad Men tried? I think I would.
I'm imagining Don Draper and Roger Sterling, and they're standing in front of that doorway, and the dinosaurs open, and they just take a swig.
They got like brandy.
They take a swig of brandy. Don takes like a drag of his cigarette, and he says, "Those are dinosaurs, Roger, and they're on a spaceship, Don. What do you propose we do about this? Let's show our lady friends." I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Mad Men did have an LSD episode this year, but it was a very down-to-earth LSD episode, maybe season 6 LSD with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Well, anyway, so I loved the episode for that. I just think Chris Chibnall had such fun writing this episode. I think he wrote some fantastic dialogue. I mean, some of this script, to me, just crackled like Stephen Moffat's best stuff, where it's like you've got characters boom, boom, one off the other, and it's really fun, and all the actors are doing just the best work they can. Had some great characters. I also think it had some good emotional material in it. Just the way they built Brian Williams' character, not the character's named Brian Williams, the actor is actually Mark Williams, and great job doing that, but balancing all the characters, I thought they did really well, and giving them all a purpose in the narrative. They weren't just sort of there to be there. Like, they actually, something happened with them all. It felt like a really tight script to me. I loved every minute of it, and sometimes with Doctor Who, I like when they can just leave the pretensions aside for a week. You know, we're not doing story arcs, we're not doing big dramatic, the end of the universe material. We're just going to have fun, because with Doctor Who, you can have fun like no other show in the history of TV. And Dinosaurs on a Spaceship did that to me better than most episodes of its ilk ever have.
Yeah.
So I really liked it for that. I liked it much more even than last week's episode, which I liked too. So
yeah, for me, I mean, you're a lot more positive on this one. I didn't think the episode was bad by any stretch of the imagination. I thought it was like a good, like solid, above average episode of Doctor Who. I'd say I was like, it's such a different episode compared to Asylum of the Daleks that it's like, I don't even know if I can compare how much, because it's like, this one's mostly for laughs. Asylum of the Daleks was mostly a serious episode, so it's like, you never have like just a comedy or just a serious episode of Doctor Who.
And I guess what I would say about that,
they're like the two opposite kinds of episodes of Doctor Who, like back to back.
And I'll just say, they are hard to compare, but if you look at how well each one does what it's trying to do, I think this one did that. What Dinosaurs on a Spaceship is like an A-level episode, no questions for me, for what it's trying to do. And Asylum, while I liked almost everything it did, is probably more of an A- in what it's trying to do. And I know you had even bigger problems with that one.
Yeah, so. I mean, and I have bigger problems with this one too. Yeah, I would say they're kind of like on an even footing for me, as far as like judging the two episodes.
That's fine. Either way, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, they're still great episodes. It's not like Curse of the Black Spot from last season. It's not like it's a bad episode of Doctor Who.
Right. So, all right. So where do you want to start with this? I actually, we may as well start with some of the characters, and I think the most significant new one here is
the guy from Jurassic Park.
But fuck it, let's go there. This is
the guy from Jurassic Park. I want him to be the companion. I figured it out. I was thinking where that guy was from. He's plays Lestrade from the new Sherlock show.
This actor is Rupert Graves, and he plays, again, Lestrade on Sherlock, which is created by Stephen Moffat, current showrunner on Doctor Who, and Mark Gatiss, who is one of his number two right-hand men.
It's like if you were someone who likes Doctor Who and you're not watching Sherlock, that is the show you need to pick up because it is fucking awesome.
Yes, and Rupert Graves is always fun on Sherlock. He's very funny as Lestrade.
It's a very good take on Lestrade. I like him a lot.
I think it's one of the best cinematic interpretations I've seen because it understands the humor inherent in that character, but also that he's not dumb. He's only dumb in comparison to Sherlock, because everyone is.
Yeah.
He's a he's a very good policeman. He's just not Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock's a dick to him because of that. But Rupert Graves here was just having as much fun as any actor could with a part, it felt like. Like, he was, he was chewing the scenery in the best way possible. That's what you have to do if you're playing Jurassic Park Guide.
Yeah.
I think he almost, out Jurassic Park Guide. Jurassic Park Guide.
It's like the one thing I was so disappointed that I didn't actually think they were going to do this, but I really wanted him to say that the clever girl line and then get killed by a dinosaur. I wanted that to happen so bad, but it never did.
But then he couldn't be a companion in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, the new companion died in the first
episode. That's true.
You can just kill them all off and then bring them back for some crazy shit. It's it would be worth it just to have a moment where he goes, clever girl, and then gets killed.
It would be. And I just kind of love the idea that he and the Doctor know each other relatively well.
Because I was just thinking about it where it's kind of a weird comparison, since a weird matchup since he's a big game hunter, but it's just his personality, I think, okay, my second favorite scene in the entire episode was the Doctor picking him up. Because he just sits down and is where did you go? And it's I left. And it's I found something. It's what is it? It's I don't know. Do you want to find out? And then he just looks up and smiles at him. It's I love that scene so much. It's you just instantly understood why the Doctor is hanging out with this guy, because it's they just have this similar crazy adventurous curiosity, and it's I really love that about Jurassic Park Guy.
And as long as we're talking about these individual characters, I did not necessarily think Queen Nefertiti was a hugely compelling character on her own, but it was very fun to have her opposite Jurassic Park Guy.
Yeah, and I really liked how they paired Jurassic Park Guy Nefertiti up with Amy. Yeah. So it's
Where you had two diametrically opposed opposites,
Yeah.
and then Amy, who's usually kind of the kooky one of the group, is the cool-headed one in the middle being bemused by these crazy people.
What I really liked about it is that they had this weird... It reminded me a lot of, like, the later, like, the last 2 seasons of The X-Files, where it's, like, all, like, now... Amy has been with the Doctor so long that she can kind of do Doctor stuff on her own.
Right.
It was like how Scully spent so fucking long with Mulder that she's just turned that, like, eventually she's just completely as sane as Mulder is.
Right.
It's like...
And I really
like that about that with, like, Amy's character.
And that's one of the things I loved here is that I always like it when they show the companions have become super competent on their own.
Yeah.
Where she does the kind of stuff, again, the Doctor would be doing that normally, but she does it herself. That's really cool. And they gave Rory some moments like that, too, where he helps, patch up his father.
Yeah, they gave Rory... It's like, I always love it when Rory's able to pull out a little bit of, like, his nursing expertise.
Yeah. And we're reminded...
Because you forget about that so often, because this is kind of like a character detail that usually gets lost in most episodes.
We're reminded that he's really good at what he does.
Yeah, like he's like a competent medical professional. Like, it's like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Rory would be like the best nurse ever. If I were, people talk about how male nurses are weird or whatever. No, Rory, that's what nurses should be. Like, he's just a nice guy who really cares.
Like, he's funny.
Yeah. He'd make lame jokes, but you'd laugh anyway because it's like, you're such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and while we're on the subject of Rory, my favorite character in this episode was his father. Was Rory's father, Brian. I think... I really loved how efficiently the character was introduced and how much they got to do with him in this episode. And I think Mark Williams was brilliant in the part. I always really, really liked him in the Harry Potter movies as Arthur Weasley. He really just kind of spruced up those scenes when he was in them with sort of this subtle humor he always had and sort of heart and warmth. He brought that to this role really well, to the point where I was actually really, really moved by the last scene where he's just this simple British handyman who has this request to just look at Earth while he's
that's when I said the scene where he met up with Jurassic Park guy was my second favorite scene. The scene you're talking about, that's my favorite scene from the episode.
Oh, yeah,
I thought that scene was really, really awesome.
Yeah, and I love that he's just sitting there with his lunch pail, like he would any other day, but he's looking at Earth, and that's all he needs.
Yeah.
But then, I also love the revelation that he and the Doctor went off and had a couple weeks of adventures. and I want that spin-off.
Yeah.
For, like, just the one episode where we see them, like, going to all the places they talked about. Mm-hmm. Like the Siluria planet of the dinosaurs.
Okay, now that you mentioned it, now I have to think about... Apparently there's a fucking planet of Silurians! Like, how did we not know about this? Like, where is Siluria?
I didn't think... That's not what I got from that.
It's called Siluria!
I thought they named it in honor of the dead Silurians.
No, dude, it's totally... That's a planet of Silurians.
Okay.
There's a Siluria out there. There are Silurians in space now.
Okay, well, maybe...
And they're in hibernation because they're always fucking in hibernation. Someday they're going to wake up because someone fucks with them, and then they're going to try to kill everybody. That's how it's going to happen, because that's how it's happened 5 fucking times now. It's sure as shit going to happen again.
Okay.
But this time it's going to be in space.
Alright, season finale.
Yep.
Story of the Silurian. Maybe we'll go, it's like a hint, and we'll learn more about it.
Yeah. This is the subtle season arc that we had no idea was coming.
Yes.
The planet of the Silurians.
Well, Chris Chibnall is writing a lot of episodes this year, and he wrote the last Silurian episode, the 2-parter.
So. I did not know that he wrote that one. It's like maybe...
Which is one of the better 2-parters of the modern era,
yeah.
I think.
Maybe he's like the world's biggest fan of Silurians, because I always thought it was a weird... I mean, I like the Silurians, but they are like one of the more minor. Like I said, they've only had like 2 or 3 like episodes in the classic Who, so I always thought it was kind of strange that they brought it back. Maybe Doctor Who and the Silurians is like his favorite episode.
Right. Well, maybe we can get him on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, they have him explain Silurian, like which faction of Silurians built the spaceship. It's like, how are they related to the Sea Devils, which are like the ocean-based Silurians?
Maybe
explain all that shit to me. I have no idea.
Maybe Stephen Moffat put him in charge of the Silurian Bible, and then show controls of all Silurian information.
Like, I'm just wondering if I mean, this is like something that kind of does annoy me about a lot of Doctor Who fans, is that they with like the new series, they have this like, one of their mottos is like, we trust in Moffat, or it's like we have faith that he's like, whatever like crazy thing that happens, it's like Moffat has it planned. And I don't think it's like, I mean, I like Stephen Moffat a lot. I think that Stephen Moffat as showrunner is overall better than RTD or Russell T Davies, but it's like, I don't have that like level of faith in him, especially after like the Tesseract reveal that it was like last season. That was so disappointing. It's like I don't have like huge amount of faith in him, but I'm kind of hoping that the weird inconsistencies with the Dalek continuity and the Silurian continuity, there's just a part of me that's hoping that that's just not an accident and that that's going to come up somehow.
Yeah.
I really hope it does. I don't think it will. I honestly don't think it's going to happen, but
Right.
I hope it does.
Well, and I will say this. I don't necessarily need to go out and say that I have undying faith in Stephen Moffat. I think he's a great writer, but I don't necessarily go that far. But if you just look at his behavior as a writer, it is odd to have big canonical inconsistencies like this. He's been pretty committed to keeping things together.
The problem with these inconsistencies is that these inconsistencies are so rooted in stuff that happened like 40 years ago.
Right.
That it's like I know it's completely unreasonable to like expect, because you can't keep, like we said hundreds of times, you can't possibly keep up with Doctor Who continuity. It's destroyed no matter what. But there are big things like Scarrow was completely obliterated. And it was put in time lock, or at least it should have, from my understanding of the Time War. So it's like, that's a fairly significant thing. It's like the Silurians, that was kind of the whole point, was that the Silurians thought that they were all going to die if they stayed on the surface of the Earth, so they were like, fuck it, we'll just like dig down and make some really faulty hibernation systems.
Okay, so Sean, here's a theory. Is it possible? So we go back to Pandorica opens, Big Bang, Season 5 finale.
Yeah.
The entire universe is obliterated, and then it's rebuilt from memory. Could these things have been restored and changed because of that cataclysm?
I don't like that explanation, just because it's like...
I don't necessarily like it, I'm just offering it.
That's no. Because then it's like, now she's like, we fucked with the time lock now, because now Scarrow's like, death, no.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The
Doctor
would
would
have
have just like erased like the old Silurian stories. I don't like that. No.
Okay.
I
Anyway.
like Doctor Who and the Silurians. It's a good episode. I mean, they fucking remade it basically in season 5. So
Yeah.
good episode.
All right. So we've talked about most of the major characters, but as for like the Doctor's gang that he assembled,
I mean, this is like one. This like I hate that I keep on coming up with these nitpicky things, but I thought it was just like weird how he said it's like he had the whole thing where it's like I made a gang. It's like I never had a gang.
He's had plenty of gangs.
Yes, but it's like I know. It's like I was thinking. It's like, well, I mean, you've had like 5 companions at the same time at like certain points in history. But I was thinking, it's just like, dude, last fucking season, A Good Man Goes to War, you did the exact same fucking thing you're doing now. You went around and grabbed a bunch of different people from different points in time. It's like, well, it's like this was last season. It's like I get that it's like it was just like kind of a fun joke, but I just thought it was weird because it just immediately occurred to me because the situation was so similar to the beginning to Good Man Goes to War that I immediately, because I really liked that sequence and I liked it here too. I was like, I immediately thought of it, and then when you said it, I was like, what? you did this like a year ago.
Well, for him, it's quite a while, but yeah. No, I guess the 11th Doctor is just that ADD. He can't. He just throws shit out there. No, so we liked the gang, whether or not it was new.
Yeah. He's had plenty of gangs before.
Right. So good gang, we liked the interplay between all of them throughout the episode.
Yes, even if Jurassic Park guy never said clever girl.
Right.
Like,
now, you had, I think, a more negative opinion of Solomon, the villain.
I thought he was. I mean, I get you have to have the villain in the episode. But to me, the fun part, like the best parts of the, and I think you would probably agree with me on this, the best parts of the episode were the interactions between the gang.
Yes.
And them adventuring around on the ship. And then once they find Solomon seemed really out of place, like he was really, like this, like very over-the-top, simplistic, like, I'm just this evil fucking dude in space. I'm evil. I killed all the Silurians. I'm going to take the dinosaurs. I'm going to kidnap Nefertiti. I'm going to, like, blackmail the Doctor into helping me. I am just evil. I'm rotten to the core. I'm Dreamer Wormtongue. It's like, and I wear a black fur coat all the time. Like, it's like, why do you look like, I mean, he looked like Dreamer Wormtongue. It's like, you fucking, like, 14th century England. Why are you wearing a black fur coat? Right. Are you going to go advise the king? Like, it just seemed really weird. And I think he seemed so out of place to me in the episode, and like almost all my complaints revolve around him.
Okay. I guess it worked for me. Again, I will say it's the weakest part of the episode. Why I didn't necessarily question it from a tonal standpoint is that he was so played as just an archetypical villain. They weren't doing any sort of moral ambiguity.
He was just like, I'm fucking evil.
But to me, it's like in that you can only get away with that in an episode where the rest of it is, we're just having a fun adventure blockbuster story. You don't need a morally ambiguous or complex villain, and I think that I agree.
I just don't think he needed to be. I think you could have written that episode without Solomon being there at all.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
I don't think he needed to be there.
But then you have to. I mean, you have to have something for them to work against. And
the missiles, which that already presents its own problem where it's like, oh good God, we're doing the thing where the Doctor now is fighting against the clock to stop them. It's like, just materialize on the planet like a day ago, and it's like, you've got plenty of time to take care of the missile situation. You don't need to fucking teleport there 8 minutes before the missiles impact the surface of the planet.
But that's how the Doctor does things. He wants to have fun.
Like, it's just
endanger all his friends.
It's just one of those things with like a time travel show where you kind of have to ignore it, but it's just like,
yes,
God damn it, why wouldn't you just go back like a week on that planet instead of landing right before the missiles hit?
No, but yeah, I mean, it didn't bother me, and I think part of it is that I think that actor, when you're trying to do a sleazy character like that actor is really good for that.
He was good.
He was
the role. I just didn't like the role.
Right. I don't remember the actor's name. He was Filch in all 8 Harry Potter movies, and I mean, he's basically playing a more evil version of Filch here.
With a black fur coat.
Yes. Well, Filch often wore a black fur coat. So
I didn't remember that. I didn't like Harry Potter that much, but
anyway. But yeah. So I actually liked some of the stuff he brought out of Matt Smith. I think he had some good, intense Doctor moments with him. But this has been a point of contention I've read online, is that a lot of people were disturbed that the Doctor killed him.
I didn't like the Doctor killed him. Like, okay. I thought that was really out of character. Like, I'm not one of the people where it's like, the Doctor has killed lots of things in the past, but he's always had a much better reason than just like revenge. Like that felt. Yeah. I mean, It was a very Seventh Doctor moment. It reminded me a lot of the two-parter with David Tennant, like Human Nature and Family of Blood. But it's like with that one, it was because I know that's based on a book that stars the Seventh Doctor. It's like Sylvester McCoy's Doctor. It doesn't feel out of place because he's very, very dark. He would do something like that. But it's like
Matt Smith is one of the lighter Doctors.
Yeah, Matt Smith's. I mean, he has his dark moments, but he's one of the much lighter Doctors that there's been, especially with like. I think he's like the lightest Doctor out of the new Who.
Yeah,
because like he doesn't have like the huge like time war.
He's gotten over it.
Yeah, he's just not like clinically depressed like the entire fucking time, like David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston and all of his work.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that just felt like I was expecting that the Doctor was going to transmat him out of there. Like somehow, and just like
bigger question.
A lesson or something.
Bigger question though. Are you happy they said transmat?
Yes, I did. Like immediately. That's like this. I mean, they said teleport later, but I said like just like having like there's. It's just like I've had this moment where it's like there's someone else. There's someone else that's like who's there with me who remembers transmat.
Sean, this is a tweet I got today on my review for Sean. They did mention transmat.
It's like yes, they did, and that's like. That made me so. It's like I wonder if Chris Chibnall like had read the script for Asylum of the Daleks and noticed that too, and he's like, "Oh, I have to put a transmat reference. I have to at least reference it."
Yes,
it's like in part. I have to say because I was just thinking about this after they made the transmat reference, and I realized part of the reason why I'm so fond of the transmat thing is that it started in one of the second Doctor's episodes where it's like I think it's Seeds of Doom or Seeds of Death. There's an episode called Seeds of Doom, and there's an episode called Seeds of Death. I can't remember which one it is, obviously, but it's like the transmat thing is dear to my heart, because it's something so unique. I've only ever heard that term used in Doctor Who, so it's like, I'm glad that someone else remembered that and brought it back.
Yes. So, anyway, but before transmat, so the whole thing where he kills Solomon, I definitely took note of it. I put it in my notes. I was a little weird. It did seem a weird thing for him to do. That being said, this is something I think they're going to follow up on because it is so obvious. Yeah, we had a moment like this in this one and in Asylum of the Daleks where he randomly killed 10 Daleks.
It's like the Dalek thing didn't bother me as much because they are Daleks, but it's like there's just something about like if you go back to it's like for me like sort of like what defines the Doctor's morality in general in situations like this. I just go back to Genesis of the Daleks with the Fourth Doctor where. The Fourth Doctor just, like, steadfastly refused to kill Davros before he made the Daleks. Knowing everything that the Daleks were going to do, he still did not kill Davros. Just because he knew it was the wrong thing to do. Like, the Doctor couldn't bring himself to do it.
It's the let's kill Hitler dilemma.
Yeah, it's like, and I always feel the Doctor comes down and it's like, no. It's like, you find a better way to do it. And a lot of the times the Doctor isn't able to find that better way. But it's like, that's how it is, and so it's like, when he didn't need to kill that guy. Like, he'd already beaten him, he'd solved the situation, everything was taken care of, and then he just, like, shot this cripple out into space and blew him up. Like, it's just, like, that's kind of fucked up. Like, that's really cold. That's a really vindictive thing to do, that it's, like, If they follow up on it and it's like some character development stuff, it's like fair enough. It's like I agree with you. I think that's much more likely that that's going to be something that they carry through rather than like the submarine stuff.
I think that's definitely something that could come to a head in episode 3 if they're doing an Old West thing where you're naturally going to have a more hardened setting. Mm-hmm. And, maybe Amy and Rory could call out and say, hey, we know you've been years away from us doing all this stuff. Has something happened to you? And maybe he has some kind of reveal. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like if they follow up on it, then it's like that's not going to be a huge problem for me in this episode. But as it stands now,
it's a weird.
I don't like it. Yeah.
All right.
So it's like reserve my judgment for later in the season if it gets followed up on.
All right. So we've talked about the story and the writing and everything.
Solomon.
I think we need to talk about the directing and how did they do those dinosaurs on a TV budget?
I don't know, yeah, I was really impressed by the dinosaur effects. Like, I was kind of bracing myself for some pretty cheesy effects. They were legitimately good. I was impressed.
They were great. I mean, you actually got an emotional attachment to that Triceratops. I did, at least. Like, when he was shot, I was sad.
I guess I was kind of sad, but it's like that Triceratops, he's the last of his species, as far as we know. It's like...
It's his time?
It's you fuckers died millions of years ago. It's like, it's kind of time to move on, Trikey.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, that was an emotional moment. I did like...
I didn't cry or anything. I'm just saying it was a...
It's okay, Jonathan.
Okay.
We're not judging you here.
I did tear up a little bit at the Earth, just the scene with Brian looking at Earth. Like, that was such a great visual.
That's a weird thing to tear up at.
Not like sad.
That's a really girly thing. It's like
it was very girly.
You tear up when you're happy with something.
It's a beautiful moment.
That's Jesus. As I said that we weren't judging you here.
You're an asshole. You are the worst therapist. I want to see you do therapy for someone.
You just went to a place that's like I can't follow, man. You went too far.
Okay.
Too sappy.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I was going to say is they just did a great job with those effects that looked like a mix of CGI and practical.
Yeah, like most of the Triceratops stuff, it looked like it was a big animatronic or like a puppet or something.
But when it was interacting with humans, it looked like it was really there and you could buy it, and I liked that. And the raptor stuff at the end, too, that was just a great action scene where they're gunning down the raptors, and Amy gets to be really badass. Mm-hmm. I always like that. Badass Scottish chick.
I don't know when Amy learned how to fire a lightning, or when either of them learned how to operate and fire a lightning gun, but...
Yeah.
I
mean, it's a gun. Gun's a gun,
right? I guess.
I mean, let alone could he fire like a gun from the year 2000, but...
Yeah.
Anyway. So... anything else to talk about with Dinosaurs on a Spaceship? Another very cinematic episode.
Yeah, I should just... I feel, since I'm the guy who's seen all the Doctor Who, I feel obligated to at least note the fact that, as far as I can remember, there's only one other, dinosaur central episode in Doctor Who history. There's, a third Doctor story called Invasion of the Dinosaurs. The dinosaurs, are time, traveling up into, the dinosaurs aren't, deliberately time traveling. It's, time travel stuff where dinosaurs are popping up in London. Dinosaur effects are much better in this episode than they were in that episode. If you put those back to back, these effects are amazing.
Yes.
I mean, it was the Invasion of the Dinosaurs. They basically had toys. Basically some kids T-Rex toy that they shot it against cardboard buildings.
Yeah. One last thing I want to note before we move on is that you and I have talked a lot on this podcast before about how much we love Murray Gold's music for Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. Did you take note of how much just fun he was having with the adventure premise this week?
Yeah, it's the music was
as always. Yeah.
Yes. I should. It's before we move on to get past the episode, I have to just say one of my one complaint that I have is I thought it was a really weird moment in the episode, and I've not seen. Maybe it's just me, but no one else I've seen complained about it. Was that kind of strange moment where they get up into the cockpit, the doctors come up with this plan, and then they realize they need two people who are directly related to each other to pilot the spaceship. And they just so happen to have Rory and his dad. Why the fuck is the spaceship designed so that so that you can only fly it if two people who are directly related man the controls? Why would you do that? What the... It's it felt like such a weird way to try to make the climax, involve Rory and his dad in the climax somehow. It's it felt so convoluted. It's why the fuck would the submarines do that? Did a dad, design the spaceship and wanted to spend some quality time with his son?
He had, a punk teenage kid who wouldn't hang out with him?
Yeah, it's I just thought that was such a weird, ham-fisted way to, just shoehorn them into the climax of the episode. It's you don't need to do that. Like, you can come up with something a little bit better than, oh, you need 2 people with, like, the same genome to operate these controls. It's like, oh, we can do that. This is sort of happy coincidence. This is so weird.
That's a fine nitpick, Sean.
It's like, but don't you agree that was just like a weird?
Yeah,
I think it's a nitpick because it's like it's one of the crucial elements of the climax of the story. That's how they learn how to pilot the spaceship. I just thought,
I guess weird. It didn't like bother me in the moment because there was so much going on and I was taking notes and stuff. But I agree, it's illogical.
Yeah, it's just like, okay. I guess that's how the spaceship works.
So
it's the forcing the circumstance we're in.
Yep. So is that Dinosaurs on a Spaceship? Are we good?
I think so. Those are dinosaurs. We're certainly on a spaceship. And
so, one last thing before we end this podcast. All this talk of space made me think of Star Trek for a second. And
okay.
I want to ask you, Sean, before we leave, have you heard the new title, the title that was just announced for Star Trek 2?
Yeah, I do. What was it?
It's
called, it was bad.
It's called Star Trek Into Darkness with no colon or anything. It's just, this like a sentence.
Remember what I was saying, with the Doctor Who thing, with the
Doctor Who title.
It's like it's really fucking hokey and it's stupid and you shouldn't do it. Don't do that with your actual title too. Yes. It's like that's just especially. I mean, it would be one thing if it was like a comedy series, but when you're taking the Star Trek's a pretty serious show, even for all its really cheesiness. It's like, and then when that's bad, right? Like
it's bad. I don't like it.
I get that you have some difficulties with the fact that there already exists a movie called Star Trek 2.
But there's a whole universe of possibilities.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying that's a good excuse, but I realize it's like, you can't just call it Star Trek 2. It's like, because that would, it's already kind of confusing. The last one was just called Star Trek, so now you have to be like, it's Star Trek the motion picture, Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's like, that's already kind of
and confusing. Star Trek the show, and
Star Trek the next generation. It's like, it's kind of confusing. It's like, now... Dude, who the fuck is going to... did you see Star Trek Into Darkness?
Yeah.
It's like, how the fuck are you supposed to say that title? Like, I don't know if you're supposed to say Star Trek Into Darkness or Star Trek Into Darkness.
I know,
I don't, that's such a bad title.
It's awful, and I just...
I feel they missed a huge opportunity. It should have been Star Trek Into Darkness. They missed it. If they had done that, I would be fine with it, because I would know they realize it's a shitty fucking title, but they can't, they just, for whatever reason, they're just going with it. If they had just thrown the numeric 2 in there, I would have been fine.
No, it's a bad title, and it's just, I honestly don't believe it's going to be released with that title, because the reaction has been bad, and people are making fun of it. It sounds like a work in progress one that was thrown out. Like, and it has not been officially confirmed, I should say that. But it's been leaked by every site. They say they've got sources and stuff. So, at the very least, we know Paramount is considering this.
Yeah,
don't do it.
I know where what I've seen from it was that at the very least they, registered a bunch of URLs that were, revolved around that.
I mean...
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Right. It honestly sounds like a video game to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a video game title or something. It's...
I don't know. It's just weird because, I always imagine, how am I going to go up to a ticket booth and say that?
Yeah, it's like, I want 2 tickets for...
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah. Please. Star Trek Into Darkness. Star Trek Into Darkness. And here's my other problem with it, is that it automatically creates this morose, foreboding tone, when, to me, the pervading emotion of Star Trek is optimism and idealism, and that's something J.J. Abrams nailed with his first movie, is that this is an optimistic future. That's what separates Star Trek from 99% of science fiction. And so you're going to this next one it's dark now. Well, you're kind of missing the point. Yeah.
It's going to start light and then go into darkness. It's going to trek into it.
Which is every Star Trek story if you want to get fucking, esoteric about it, but... Yeah, it's a dumb title. Don't release the movie with that title.
Please. At the very least, just slap a colon in there or something.
Yes.
Just eliminate that Trek Into Darkness. Just kill that at the very least.
Or do Star Trek Forward Unto Darkness. Make it Shakespearean. I don't know.
Yeah, just don't incorporate the Trek into the title. That. It's just awkward and hammy.
And to be honest, I would be fine with just Star Trek 2, because it's a different series. They've already fucked it up by calling the first one just Star Trek. So you might as well. I mean, the whole goal of it was to draw in people who didn't know anything about old Star Trek movies, so you're not going to confuse anyone, except, like, you know, diehard fans who are smart enough to sort it all out for themselves anyway. So, you know, I miss the days when sequels were just 1, 2, 3, easy, you put them on your shelf.
Yeah, so it's no longer. Now it's, I mean, fuck with, like, Star Trek fucked up long ago, where they, like, dropped the numerals when it went into, like, the Next Generation cast, and now we've got Star Trek. It's like, I mean, it's just like Star Trek again, Star Trek 2 again.
But that at least would be simple for this continuity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I assume they'll make at least, you know, maybe 3. And you have Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3. That is why the Spider-Man trilogy always will hold a special place in my heart, because on my shelf, it's Spider-Man 2, 3. Perfect.
Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, that's a different series.
Spectacular, amazing, double Spider-Man again 2. Whatever the fuck
Revenge.
Whatever the fuck they're going to call the next one.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge. The Amazing Spider-Man Into Darkness.
Amazing Spider-Man Trek Into Darkness.
The Amazing Spider-Man Swings Into Darkness.
Oh, God. Let's hope not.
The Spectacular Spider-Man Swings Into Darkness. Get some alliteration up in there.
It's just like... It's just people need to, like... The titles thing is it's going too far. Doctor Who, now Star Trek.
Yeah, I'm even worried about...
Just make the madness stop.
I'm even worried about Marvel and their sequel titles that they've now... Iron Man is continuing as just 2, 3, like, I like that, but now every other one is going to have subtitles.
Now it's
That's
like
going to get
Thor,
confusing.
The Dark World, Captain America, The Winter Soldier.
Which, Captain America, The Winter Soldier is a good title because it's an arc that people know.
Yeah.
Is Thor, The Dark World a reference to anything? Because that sounds like a fucking video game.
Thor, The Dark World, like, The Dark World, I think is supposed to be a reference to Svartalfheim, which is like the home of the Dark Elves. So
it sounds like a video game to me.
Yeah, I agree with you, I mean...
Yeah. What was wrong with Thor 2?
Now that you said it, Thor 2 sounds kind of weird to me. I don't know. Thor 2.
Thor again.
Thor 2. Thor who?